Hello, everybody. OdatNurd here with another live coding session for Sublime Text. And let's see how well it goes for us this time. I've learned the important lesson of not jiggling around with the mixer settings just prior to recording. Instead, I was jiggering around with my Sublime settings instead. So that'll probably go quite well. Yeah, nothing could possibly go wrong there. So, how is everybody doing? Welcome to this Sunday, and we are going to be doing some work on my Sublime Text package override audit, and in particular, just cleaning up some windows on the other monitor. There, we're going to be working on trying to add some external diff type functionality. Now, as we've seen, we kind of have something like that going. I have this command that I have had for quite some time, which executes a thread externally. And apparently, I added a line there for no particular reason. Let's go ahead and save that. This runs an external diff, and I have this code that we worked on in a session previous to the last one to sort of work out some of the action that we want to have happen in there. And we also have this outline for the items that we're going to try to pull off here. So let's go ahead and jump on in and get started on that, and we'll see how it all shakes out. So let me just go ahead and click an icon here just to make sure that that does not recur unless I accidentally press F12. It has happened before. It will happen again. What is the idea here? To create an external diff tool for overrides, because sometimes, as we saw in the stream before last, override diffs are a little tricky to figure out, particularly if the tab style switch between tabs and white space, but also to a lesser degree, the same is also possible. Just if it's a really complicated thing and you wanted to not only diff it and see the diff in context, but also be able to, say, edit that diff in real time and merge partial changes over or something. That's the sort of thing that's really best done in an external diff tool. So one of the last things we're going to do before we hang up this legacy branch on the 1 point whatever stream of override audit and cut over to the version 2 that has more or less the same code but heavily refactored to be much easier to work with and use than this behemoth is this diff stuff. We don't want to do any more work here, and I want to try and do this in a way that I can easily cross merge that stuff over. Still have a little bit of a frog in my throat. I would also like to say before we get rolling here that I did promise in my video that I posted on this channel and on my other channel at the beginning of December, end of November, about how going into November I was going to be doing live streaming once a day, and then sort of mid-January the videos were going to start coming. The timeline on that has been pushed back a little bit due to the fact that I was sick and couldn't record anything, and also, full disclosure, I've been working on writing a lot of training at work, and I believe it or not, when I create my videos, I actually do write out what I want to say in them and polish them as much as I can to stop my rambling and provide the core information there. And after an entire day of doing that at work, it's really hard to work up the gumption to do it in the evenings as well. So I have been a little bit more lax in that than I should be, but I'm trying to work on some common questions videos in that series while I'm continuing to work on the package dev videos. And do remember that if you like these videos or the videos on my other channel, you can subscribe to either channel to receive notifications when new videos appear. And you can also use the bell notification icon if you want it to tell you when those videos arrive, or in the case of this channel, perhaps when I'm going live, assuming you sit next to a computer so that you'd be able to do it. I'm really trying to also remember to get back into the habit of scheduling the next one. I was doing really good at that until I hit December and didn't need to because it was happening every single day. Um, but nevertheless, let us go ahead and get started. Now, as we can see, I do have a list of items down here. I sort of spitballed these while I was doing my walk this morning, the things that more or less would do the functionality we want. And the first thing is, let's go through all of them in order here. Why don't we? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add an external diff setting to the default settings for the package, which would be these ones. These are the default settings. We're going to add one in here to specify the command for doing an external diff. And that will be false if you don't have this set up, which is what it's going to be by default, but you in your own custom settings can apply a setting there. And we're also going to want to, if you watch my videos on HyperHelp when I was developing them, I had a item called HH setting. I can do the same thing here. I think. Oh, it's underscore OA setting in this one. But nevertheless, it's the same thing as the other one, which allows it to get keys from a set of known defaults like so to make sure everything is kosher. We're going to make sure we update that as well. Now, the next thing we're going to work on after that part is the code in here when this runs. This is update the package API. Let's go ahead and scoot that down so we can see that. This code is doing all of this stuff here. It's calling get packed package contents, and it's trying to figure out if this is an installed package, i.e. something that's user installed, or a shipped package, i.e. one that ships with Sublime, so that it knows. This is an easy enough way to get the content of that override out, and this is for figuring out what type it is. It'd be nice if this was a better API, because these methods that have underscores in them are really not meant to be exposed externally. So if we could update that API a little bit, and that would be over here in this packages.py file, then we would be able to take all of a bunch of this code and make it a little nicer and have it be an actual API function for getting override contents in another fashion. We will also, in this particular case, want to add a helper file for creating a temporary file, which is what this part is doing, figuring out the name of a file, creating a temporary file that's read-only, writing that into it, and making it read-only, which might be what this is doing. No, wait, no, that's saying, oh, yeah, chmod change. Yeah, we want to make that file read-only because we don't want external programs to think that they can edit it. Not that there's anything wrong if they do, but if an external tool allows you to edit a file that is read-only, we're hosed. If it's smart, it knows the file is read-only. It doesn't let you edit it. That's a better user experience for the user because once the diff is done, that file is going to be deleted. All right, now the next thing we're going to do after we create that little helper file is flesh out the diff process class, which is totally the code in one of those files over here that we were just looking at a second ago. Oh, I guess it was actually this same thing. This code up here, this external diff thread, is in many respects doing the same sort of thing as the async process class is in the built-in exec command for executing a program. And what we're really doing here is just executing it, letting it run in a thread in the background to ensure that it doesn't block the UI, and we only care to know when it's finished executing so that we can delete the temporary file that we created. And then the very last thing to do is actually create some sort of command to use all of that stuff, which in the context of this is actually this command, what already exists, except all of its parts will be done elsewhere. And it's also worth mentioning that we want to make sure that we do all of these things in a way that allows us to take this code and pull it over into the master branch, which is the BSR version 2 of this code. Now, After the last stream, I actually did do a release 1.1.2, if I recall correctly. I can't remember if I actually discovered this while I was still in the stream or if I did it after I dropped out. But if you watched to the end of that, you know that my branches did not have the parity I expected them to have after everything was merged. And in the end, I ultimately discovered the reason for that was that I forgot that a ways back, my good friend Keith Hall made a simple PR for a change because he was working on some code that accesses the the Sublime Text syntaxes in C# code and in Python code. I think he's working maybe on I want to say a syntax system for Rust. I know he was working on. So anyway, it seemed like there was something about the YAML that Sublime likes and those libraries don't like, but he made a little modification that Sublime doesn't mind. Those libraries are happier with, so everything works a lot better. Uh, in particular, if you happen to have my override audit class or package installed, and I forgot to pull that change down before I started. So that's why there was a little bit of weirdness going on there. So let's go ahead and start in on this operation right after I take a sip of water because I do have a little bit of tickle in the back of my throat. I should also point out that tonight's coffee is brought to you by Cinnabon, in that it's cream that makes your coffee taste like a Cinnabon cinnamon bun. Just as good as mocha, but it's a little different. Okay, so we want to add an external diff setting. So that's going to be here. Now let's go ahead and zoom that. We don't need that panel for right now. These are all the various settings that are available in Override Audit. And as you probably know from looking at this, and if you follow me in the forum, I tend to be fairly verbose and document things because I am, when I'm not writing documentation for things, I'm writing things, new things, and maintaining things that I and other people wrote. And when you're a maintenance programmer long enough, you realize that no matter how smart you think your code is, uh, you're going to forget about it if you come back to it a little bit later. And we're probably going to see a lot of that in the next few streams with the override audit code, particularly in this version, because I think I'm slightly more conversant with the version 2 than I am with the version 1, but also to a larger degree. It's been a long time since I've looked at either of them, and I don't comment my Python code as much as I would like to because it does not seem to be a quote-unquote Pythonic. So we're going to have a new setting here, and it's going to be called External Diff. And the default value will be false to indicate there is no external diff happening. Now we say there's probably going to be more work to be done here. An exec style dictionary that specifies the command to be used to perform a diff in an external program. If this value is false, external diffing is not. Oh, will that actually fit there? No, it is not enabled. Now, we probably also want to say what are the things we're specifying here. Now, I have this code is not as good as it could be. This was the proof of concept, so it really should get a shell command. I chose shell command over command because it seems like a nicer way to go because it's the actual command line that you would expect to run. I've never really liked that whole command option. The way we implement this, and this is going to be version 1.2 because it's adding functionality in a backwards compatible way, is initially going to be done with just a shell command, and then we might have a couple of small point releases while I make some other minor cosmetic changes while people test this out other than me and see if they have any feedback on how it could be better improved before we put the cork in the 1.0 bottle and jumps directly to 2. And from there we can go off. So we're going to say we can support shell command to begin with. We can support, I'm going to just pull this off to the other monitor for just the time being here. So I can refer to this while we also look at this file. I won't zoom that up so I can actually see if someone joins the chat. Hello to anybody that's watching that's not talking in the chat, by the way. I don't think I say that nearly enough. What was I'm going to go here. The options we support in the dictionary are shell command, and that's going to be the program that you can execute. I think, what did we have env in here as well? Yes, we did. We had path and we had env, which are things you can do in a build system. Or maybe we don't need to put them in a list per se for this particular documentation. Those are the main items. Okay, let's say, and let's change it this way. Let's say a dictionary that specifies the command to, can I do that? To be used to perform a diff in an external program. If this value is false, external diffing is not enabled. Okay. When this is a dictionary, the shell command, path, and env keys are used to determine what program to execute and how. These function in the same way as their counterparts in the exec command build systems do. In addition to all of the standard build variables, this also supports the variables, and here we have to look over here. Well, this is called left and right, but I don't like that as much as override and base, I think. It's probably the nicer way to go. The variables $left, dollar override and $base to indicate the file names of the two files respectively. Now, much like other things, this initial version, because this is smart enough to be done in a backwards compatible way. Right now, we're saying if this is diff, if this is false, external diffing is turned off. If it's a dictionary, external diffing is turned on. And inside that dictionary, you can specify a shell command, a path, and an env. We might say that shell command is the only one that's required, but that's probably obvious. We can always come back and redocument this later. And then we also say, in addition to all these standard build variables like $file and working dir and things like that, which we do need to think about a little bit. That part's going to come later on in the video. We also support the override and base variables to indicate the names of the files that are being diffed, because you're going to need to pass those to the commands. Now, we may decide we want to support command and shell equals true later. So if so, we can always add those in and update the code. Anybody that already has a build wouldn't have been using them because they're not mentioned here. And once they are mentioned, then people can use them and they'll work. And similarly with variables, we can always add in extras. That's not that big of a deal. So we could do that. And also this thing here has the defaults up here. And external diff defaults to false, as we already said. But maybe we'll make this code actually correct. And actually, I also just realized, here's what we're going to do here. We're going to open a new file over in this window. and then bring this tab back. We'll look at that. And that's just so that this window over on this monitor can, whoa, that's too big, can be my console so I can verify things. And the standard rules apply. Sometimes you'll see me go in here and look at the console. And sometimes I'll be referring to it on the other window. And I'll try to remember to do that if I'm looking at something in particular. And this is an error because this code was written to talk to the other version of the code. Doesn't necessarily work with this one per se, as we can see. Excuse me. When I got that frog in my throat, and every time I modify my outline, it reloads the settings. So that's the first part of this done, I think. We can verify that, I suppose, if we zoom that back out. So I am in override audit. So if I said from override audit dot override audit import OA setting, and then print OA setting external diff, we get false there. And if I went over here and changed this to true, that same code would now return true. So it's definitely loading that setting. We do want that to be false though. Oh, sorry, it's preferences override audit settings. These are my override audit settings, and let's pull that over. I like to bring the comments with them when I do them for things that I know aren't going to rewrite the file for me, because it reminds me of what the options are that are available. So we can do that. And well, how was I doing this over in this one? Because we might as well try to set that up. Well, actually, let's save that first. And if I do this, it's getting the dictionary. So that's good. That's what we want. That's the console, isn't it? I'm going to open console and window and get rid of that window. I forgot I implemented that functionality. So now that window will tell me that it's the console. It's going to make life a little bit easier there. Now I've totally forgotten what it was that I was doing. Oh yeah, I was going to look in my key bindings, which I did not open yet. That's the config for that. Because did I have one set here? Yeah, I did, didn't I? Oh, working. Oh yeah, working dir should be in that list. Oh, I said in addition to standard things. Right on. Okay, so that's good. So let's go ahead and copy that, and we can close this file now. And over in this one, I can actually put that code in here, because that also reminds me that we need to mention the other part of this. Oh yeah, we didn't do that, did we? Shell command working dir path and end of keys used to determine what program to execute and how. The keys, OS X, Windows, and well, I don't like that. Let's go in our own biased order. Linux, Windows, and OS X can be optionally specified as dictionaries to alter settings per platform. Okay, so that's the sort of thing we want there. We save that and put that there. And I can't remember actually if working dir is one of the things, but it should be if it's not. So we should totally get on that. And if I was to run that command, there's our setting, and it's got all of its extra stuff in it. So good, good. Okay, so we're going to, and it is using meld, and I just double check. I think that's where my meld is actually stored. User local bin meld. I'm assuming that I installed meld on OS X. I don't actually think I did, to be perfectly honest. But that's neither here nor there. That part can be tested a little bit later with an appropriate diff tool. And that will let us know if all of this stuff works the way it's supposed to. So now we can open this repository. And let's see, we got stage, yeah, we added a setting and we added a setting. And there's still that one file that really should be ignored. I'm still gonna leave it all alone, and we're going to swap that to say include a new setting, external diff. This adds a new setting to the system to specify the name of the external diff program to use on overrides, if any, and how to execute it. Once everything is all working here, another thought I have, and I believe I mentioned this in the last stream, is that if you have submerge, it might be handy to be able to do, well, it's already staged. Shoot. Is this? No. How about this one? To be able to use submerge in order to get diffing right in here. Now there's the use of being able to diff externally outside of the other thing. Instead of just seeing I removed this line, I added this line, we can see exactly what I added on that line. And also I changed that, and I could use left and right to modify things as appropriate. Now, I'm not sure. It's been a while since I tried to do that with override audit, and it did not quite work way back when. But it was something that he wanted to work on because Submerge 2 supported it, so Submerge 3 should also support it. So I'm thinking that one of the things that the external diff setting could be set to is submerged or submerge underscore 2 to indicate that you're using that package and you want to use that to do the external diff, and it could do magic behind the scenes. That may or may not happen in the 1 point whatever series. And I kind of want it to, but I'm not sure how well that will work in the short term. This is planned to be done in a way that's extensible in the future and which also supports per platform settings in the single settings entry so that people that use Sublime on multiple platforms, such as myself, can set it and forget it and not have to keep fiddling with the settings. One of the few things I kind of don't like about Sublime, all things being equal, is that whole idea of there can't be platform-specific preferences. Kind of wish that there were, because there's a couple of things I wish could be platform-specific, but that is that part done. So if we came back here, we have added an external diff setting, which is defaulting to false, which can also be an exec, like a dict like for exec, and we've updated OA setting to get it as seen here. We're totally pulling it. So we have done that one. The next one is update the package API. There needs to be an easier way to pull the contents of an override. It could perhaps return a tuple that gives you not only the content, but also the type of the override as well. And as we saw, that's specifically for the purposes of creating an external, oh, no, that was this one, a temporary file and being able to get the information that we need and name it nicely. Of course, all else being equal, you you have to do it this way because if you're overwriting something, you're overwriting a packed file, and if you're overwriting a packed file, it's in a zip file, and not all external diff programs can know to extract a certain file out of a zip file as part of their operation. Now, to be sure, one of the things we could do is create a variable named package or package file that actually expands to the full path of the package file in question if someone wanted to create like a bash script to do that stuff themselves. But again, that's something that can be future extendable. Anyway, yeah, there's that thing. I'm going to take a sip of coffee here before we continue. Um, So, and as we can see here, and again, let me just turn that sidebar off for a second. We probably don't need it. We close that. We basically want to we want to be able to do this code in a helper, but we want to be able to do that and get not only the content, but this thing too. So let's go ahead and look over here in the actual API. Now, there are a bunch of classes in here. Those are top level items. Package file set is for figuring out what files do and don't appear. This is what allows you to know that there are a bunch of files in this package, but only these 4 are overrides. So none of those are interesting. That's a diff result. Package info is the real operation here. One of these package info classes, we can go ahead and actually just stop here. It holds meta information on an installed Sublime Text package. And ooh, this let's do that and that. While we're modifying things in here anyway, because that's just kind of irritating. You know what? Let's go ahead and toggle the mini map just so we can see. There is a fair amount of code in here. 229 is where we're at. But I just want to do a quick, yeah, see, there's a few of those that should probably all be fixed. So let's search for package and then an optional character and then a slash as a regular expression. There's one. Wonder why that one isn't a big deal. And that one, and oh, because these are regular comments and not doc comments, which are strings. But still, I like the idea of them all being, oh, shoot. Okay, so that's probably cool for that. Jump back up. Whoops. Jump up here. So when you fire up any particular command that needs to know about package information, one or more instances of this package info class are created, and it does the work of scanning the installed package it scans installed packages, as we can see here. Well, I guess it doesn't say it there specifically. One of these performs a scan if there's a folder, then that folder is listed as a folder that it exists in and all the files in it are grabbed. If there is a Sublime package file in the packages folder alongside the binary, it's considered a shipped file and that path to that zip file is stored. And if it appears anywhere inside of the installed packages folder, the same thing happens. And then magic happens in other commands to know that 2 or more of those things all triggered, like it was unpacked and it was shipped, or it was unpacked and it was installed, or it was shipped and it was installed, or it was shipped and it was unpacked, if I didn't already say that one. And then that's how it figures out what an override is, because it knows the entire contents of all of those things. And wherever there's overlap with the contents of a zip file, there's an override. So there could be many of these, and the same sort of information is kind of used in HyperHelp as well, but it's far less verbose there. It mostly just contains information about a help package. Um, but this is the thing that contains all of the informations on a package, including binary file patterns so that it can figure out what files it shouldn't bother trying to diff. And now let's just go ahead and see. This is scanning, figuring out if, because this is a real thing. Linux case-sensitive file system, default and default if one is uppercase and one is lowercase, or the D is uppercase in one and lowercase in the other, not considered overrides. On Windows, on Mac OS, totally could be considered as an override, which is unfortunate. But in order to verify things, there is various code throughout Override Audit that figures that out, and it's usually done by way of a lambda because that seemed most simplistic at the time. Now, do we actually have a nice? Okay, see if this package actually exists, which means it has a file in the shipped path or in the installed path or an unpacked path. The package file is the installed path if it has one, or the shipped path if it has one, and if it has both, it's going to pick the installed path first because that's the one that's actually going to be used by Sublime. Whether or not it's unpacked, the contents of the package, the shipped contents. See, get package content sounds like it gets the actual contents of the package, which this is get packed package file content. So has possible overrides. Override file zip info. Given the name of an override file, return the zip info structure from the containing package. Okay. List of override files, expired overrides, which is actually performing the date, binary patterns, diffing a couple of overrides. So how do we want to, pardon my ear scratch, define this particular API? This is roundabout the place where we want this. Now, I have been thinking to myself that not only do we care about the packed override content, we also maybe we want to get unpacked contents as well without having to load the file from disk ourselves. I don't know if that's actually useful. Let's let's do that. And if we look at what we did here, which is get packed package file contents, is that used anywhere over here for anything? Only in the diff functionality. Oh, it totally has a get unpacked override contents. So these things actually exist as something internal, so they could easily be made external. Well, that's nice. Now this might return none if there was a problem. Otherwise, it returns the appropriate thing. And I presume unpacked override content works the same thing. Okay. Here's a thing for all you Python gurus out there. If your function was going to return a tuple, like for example, either installed and the text of a file or shipped and the text of a file, but you needed to signal an error, do you ship back a tuple of nones or do you just ship back none. I tend to go tuple of nuns because then you could test if either one of the values returned as none and still unpack it as a tuple, which seems like it's probably the way to go. So get unpacked, override contents, and get packed. Oh, sorry. Get packed package file contents and get unpacked override contents. Those are the two things I'm going to say we actually want to have here. Let's do you and you. Expand to lines. I do not, what, do I not remember what key binding does that? Because I would have thought it was one of those. Oh, it's not split into lines, it's expand to lines. I was doing it the wrong way. So we want those two things, let's say. Get packed package file contents, takes an override file, and returns back the content of the file. Oh, actually, it returns more. It returns the content and the path and the modification time. Ooh, let's go ahead and implement these. Oh, that's right, because they're used by the diff, aren't they? Yeah, I remember now. That's why there's a 0 on this thing. Because when you create a diff override, you can pass not only the content to the diff function, but also the name of the file and its modification time, and then the diff library in Python automatically fills out the diff headers for you and uses those file names and dates. Yeah. We don't want to do that here per se. So yeah, let's go ahead and just implement them here, and then we can shuffle them down pretty easily. So what might this be called? We might say mute the microphone because we're going to cough, and then immediately follow it up with packed override contents. That's not a thing that already exists, right? Nope. And we want self and override file. And are these things documented, I hope? No, that's unfortunate. Well, in that case, we'll leave it out here for the time being. We can always do that in another thing. Well, content. Oh, yeah, see, this is returning none. That's probably not really what I want, is it? 427. How was I doing that down here? That's too far. That's package list, which is just a list of package info things. Oh, because it actually needed it as a list of items. You know, not that one, not that one, not that one. What? Oh, I gotta save it first. I assume. There we go. And it's broken. It's not being automatically reloaded because it's not something that Sublime loads by default. It would really be nice if this returned none, none, none. But then I'd have to pack it back up for the other code that it's actually used for. So let's say content, well, we'll just do it this way. We can, again, we can always fix it later, can't we? Do we want to, yeah, okay. Yeah, we're going to do it. Get packed package file contents for the override file. And then if content what do we actually want to return back? We want to return a state and let's see, the content, which is content 0. We don't care about the actual file path of the thing because that's going to be something local. And if we came over here, copy that and zoom there. We'll do that. We'll spell it correctly. O type. Yeah, there we go. Override type is installed if self.installed path else shipped. So it can figure out which of the two it is, and then it returns O type and content. Net 0. That's just well, you know what? Maybe we can go ahead and do something like that. We might even say, if not content, return none, none, which is what we always generally want, and otherwise do that. So that would be get packed, or just packed override contents. Given an override, return back that information. So let's go ahead and copy that. Whoa, nope, sorry. Do that. Now, if we came over here and did that, we might say what? Content and O type are equal to package info dot packed override contents for override. Oops. Take that out. Now we don't need to do this because we're calling that over here. Whoa. I lost track of my change. There it is. We used to be calling package info get packed package file contents for the override file and grabbing the 0th thing. Now we're getting content and O type as that. Let's go ahead and assume this worked. And pre is going to be O type. No module named override audit dot. Oh, this is still Busty Busterson. From override audit dot lib slash packages, import package info. Okay, so that seems like it should, referring to this error in the console here. Oh, is it the test browse? Yeah, it is. Okay, let's go ahead and comment that out. There we go. So that seems to be doing something now. There's your packed override contents. We will grab all of that and shuffle it down here. And I don't like that this has print. I don't think I'd come up with the log type functionality yet, or maybe I did and it's just not invoked here. That's also something to be, I think I might have tweaked that in Override Audit version 2, to be perfectly honest. So I'm not going to worry about that particular aspect here. We're going to say if this is going to return none, then it's because an error has already been displayed, so we don't need to display one, and the other code knows not to do anything with it. So that's that one. And now we would have def unpacked override contents for self and override file. And that's basically, I would imagine, calling this, and again, only taking the first item if it exists, if I had to guess. In the diff, yeah, that's exactly what that's doing. So, content equals self dot get unpacked override contents for override file. Whoop, don't do that. If not content, return none, return content 0. Which I would imagine is the thing we did way down in yon diffy type action. Thus, was what we would do, unpacked 0. Yeah, okay, so there's no special stuff happening there. But now we can get the unpacked override contents if we care. If we care. What's a good way to test that? Well, first thing I guess we should do is package loader won't work because this is loaded from local source. Do I have a version of this in the package folder? No, I do not. I hate to have duplicates of these things just to make it happy, you know? Well, I guess for our purposes, I can do this. Save this file, which I think should probably have also loaded that in as well. From override audit dot packages import packed package contents, let's say. Oh, idjit more like. Oh, it's in lib. Oh, it didn't reload it, huh? What if I did that? And then I did that. Does that help? No. All right. Fine. That's going to switch to packages. There it is. Been using Windows too much. Override audit. And override audit.sublime package. Open. Does that change the location of any of these files? Haha. How swank is that? Okay, now. Reload that bad boy. We work now? No, huh? Oh, I'm a derp monkey here, man. It's a package info is what it is. No wonder that didn't work. But we probably needed to do that part anyway, so, you know. We would want, actually, package info is actually the name of the thing. And then package info is equal to package info, and I believe there's a constructor in here. It takes the name of a package if you so choose. And yeah. What's a small package? Let's say. HTML. Oh, that HTML package totally even has some overrides in it. Gosh. You got to have something nice in here, don't you? Well, you know what? I know one. Outliner. Let's say outliner is the package we want to. Oh, we can just leave that. And it is the outliner package. And if I said dot, I already forgot what the name of that thing is that I tried to load. Packed override contents, and the thing was no, outline dot sublime syntax. There we go. This is an installed package, and there's the syntax for this. So that seems to nicely work. Now that is a installed package, so that aspect has worked. We might also, I guess, well, maybe HTML is the way to go, you know. Oh, wait, what's in this package? What? I have unpacked. Do. No simple overrides found. Well, that's, thank goodness for that. Plain text.tm language. Okay, how about that? Package info. Okay. That's going to be none because it cannot find file in Sublime package. So you can't load outline.sublime syntax from the text Sublime package file. But what you can load there is plain text. I would have thought. Oh, wait, was it? Ow, I punched myself in the head. That's a shipped file, and there's the content. Why is that? Oh, it's a oh, crap on a cracker. That's a good point. I'd forgotten about that. Oh, how did we handle that here? The code here in this packages folder thing here just returns directly what you see. We can actually go ahead and shuffle those to the place where they should probably be. Cut there and bring them down before there and put them back in. Still reloads. The diff functionality takes an array of strings. So that functionality is actually returning an array of strings. We can close that for the time being. Close that, we don't care. Sure, we don't care about that. What was I doing? Was I doing a for loop here? Yeah, I was. That's probably not what we want here. Oh, that's a good pull. Get packed package contents. Let's go ahead and jump to there. It's calling read lines. So the thing we could do here is we could have this just continue to return lines, and anyone that returns that thing will know that they're going to get the override line by line. We could remove we could pass an argument to this to specify whether it should call read or read lines so that the internal diff functionality can call read and the external or read lines and the external functionality will call read so that the return that comes back actually is a string that hasn't been wrapped in some fashion. I'm just thinking, for the purposes of this, I don't know that it really matters in the general sense because it can just write the file out one line at a time. But one thing to think about here is line end differences, because I would imagine if this was like a Windows package, that might cause problems in the diff. But on the other hand, um, if you created the diff from using package override or from extracting the file should have had the same line ends as you. Let's leave it this way for now, and we can flag it as a to-do that maybe that needs to change in the future. It might actually make it worse. I don't know. More thought needs to be put into that. And clearly, there's only so many call points for this. So if there was a Boolean parameter here that defaulted to something and the default up here aligned with this, then all the call points will still work. Plus newer call points could be tweaked to do the appropriate thing. So I don't think that's really anything to get too in a huff about at the moment. But it is correctly getting packed override contents from installed and shipped. So we need unpacked override contents. And is this actually doing any validation? It's just opening a file from the path. So as long as it's an unpacked file, it doesn't actually care if it's an override or not, I would imagine. So um, incidentally, if you follow the GitHub repository, Evandro Cohen or Evan Dracone, I'm not sure how the name splits apart there, who is add-ons ZZ in the forum and whatnot, was commenting just recently about how the package paths or resource paths in packages are always POSIX paths, and which means if you try to construct a package path by saying OS path join packages name override file like this, you end up with a file that's a valid operating system file but an invalid resource specification, which is what this whole fixed path thing is doing. It figures out if it should convert path separators to be the other way so everything works out the way you expect. So we have our packed, we have our unpacked. We want to test the unpacked one. That's what we're trying to do. I keep getting distracted by explaining stuff. So, user git ignore. Yeah, that seems pretty innocuous as a thing. So let's go ahead and do this to fetch the user package. And then we can say package info, and it's a user package dot unpacked override contents, and the override is dot git ignore. And there's my git ignore. And if I did this, I would see error loading that particular file, cannot find file, and nothing happens. All right, so let's say that's probably an easier way to pull the contents of an override. This method could perhaps return a tuple that gives you not only the content, but also the type of the override, which is what we did there. We've got the unpacked contents now. Now, are we actually doing anything like that over here? I don't think we are. I think we're just passing the full name of the override file to the thing. So that's actually not something we need to worry about here, but we did just test that there. And I'm going to assume if get unpacked override contents works for internal diffing, it's definitely returning a string, the appropriate information. So we can go ahead, I think, and why is that? There we go. Oh, come on. It's already there. Okay, so let's say we include a new package API endpoint. Now, generally speaking, we want all these changes to be something that are easily forwarded along, but I'm guessing that when I moved this over to override audit 2, I didn't make a lot of structural changes. I probably just copied it directly. I might have made additional enhancements or something. I don't think I made any bug fixes, or I would have found commits for them. So it should be fairly easy to move this over. This includes new API endpoints in the package info class to retrieve the contents of a packed or unpacked override as a list of lines in the file, as well as for packed overrides an indication as to whether the source is a shipped or installed package. This is a thin wrapper around existing API endpoints that are internal and are used in internal diffing. Diffing is not a word, but let's say that's okay. And we just stat our changes here. We made some syntax errors go away. We have a couple of things. Now these are all, I assume, one line apart, so that's okay. And some more fixed things. So let's stage that file and commit it. And then we can come back to here, and now we can jump to here, which is adding a helper for creating a temporary file, which again is more or less what we want to do is pass it an override and have it, and a package info and an override, and have it return back to us the name of a file, possibly read-only, to use in our little diff functionalities here. It might actually behoove us to actually try to run this command. Let us, just for the sake of this, I need to, oops, I should have used this one. Okay, there actually is a log. Package info collection thread. I would imagine. Where are we stored? We're in override audit. Okay. I would have guessed that's probably the case. Log is an underscore type thing, huh? Wonder what I was doing there. Anyway, probably if I modified these to be override audit, cannot import name packages with overrides. They used to be private and now they're not. That's why that's mad. Oh, okay. That seems fairly simplistic. We'll probably do that the smart way, quote unquote. Okay. So there's your OA test diff. Now let's just verify what this thing is actually going to do when I try to run it. If you run it with a package and with an override, then it immediately creates a package info for that particular package and executes the diff, which should it actually do? I don't think so. That's something to work on later. That's what I was doing in the console, but creating a package info for a specific package will cause it to execute a scan for a shipped package and an installed package. And I think it also, actually it defers figuring out the actual overrides until you ask it. So that part's okay. That might actually be okay. Um, It'll execute the diff right away if you do that. Otherwise, it calls package resource viewer. Sorry, the package resource browser to browse for the package you provided, which could be none, in which case it asks you for a package. The type of that is an override, and it invokes the callback, which is to call execute diff for the same stuff that happens there. Let's see what happens. This is going to be exciting. For our purposes here, I think we can go ahead and remove that because that's in our little config now. We can, let's see, do that. And if I actually pulled this part down like this, made this part like so, then we should be able to do that. And not sure. Did I push it wrong? Doesn't seem to be doing anything. Let's go ahead and move that over here. Debugging is fun. Override audit external diff. It's a window command. Okay, I'm going to do this. Wow, okay, that's quite unhappy. Oh, no, that's the same thing. Okay, so here's what we do. We say sublime.log commands true and run the thing. It's being invoked. So something somewhere isn't doing anything. Okay. That printed some stuff. Oh, I didn't reload that file. Ah, okay. Ah, that is the real pain maker. That's what that is. Okay, so let's go ahead and comment that stuff out. I'm just fixing my little key binding there. We'll clear this console so it looks a little nicer. And, whoa. Oh, and turn that off before I go insane. I don't have the menu set up for that, do I? No, I don't. Okay, let's clear that one more time. Okay, I'm going to hit the key. And, oh, I changed this, did I? I believe I did. Now I'm debugging other stuff. This is also something, incidentally, as you can tell by the name, that meant to go into override audit. It's on done now. Okay, let's try that. Oh, here's a list of all file, all, oh, you know what? Let's cancel out of that for a second. And, ooh, yeah, yeah. That needs to be smarter. Because it will invoke those with null or none if there aren't any. But as we can see in the console, yeah, say this. Print package info and package info and print override, and then we could say is none or override is none return. Just that's part of the browsing code. That's how it tells you that the user didn't pick anything. So if I cancel that, we see none and none in the console. If I pick, say default, and I only have one override there, so it's only showing me one thing, and when I hit it, it is displaying some stuff. It is mad. Oh, file name too long. Oh, okay. So what we actually, I think, want to do here. Where was the name coming from before? Oh, I may have. Oh, that's from splitting the extension on the override. Okay, that seems like it should have worked. The name, it is getting mad on set timeout from there in temp file. So at line 1, 2, 3, we want, the prefix is wrong, wrong, wrong. Let's print O type. Let's print package info.name, and let's print name, and let's return. Clear that. All right, it's always a good idea to test stuff before you check it in. And, oh, I did not scroll all the way to the bottom there. So the package info is default. The override is that. What's happening here? Does this not do what I think it does? Let's print the return value from that and see. Oh, sorry, print. Okay, so, and again, we need to, well, we won't clear it. Let's do that. Return is The first part of that is the type. Oh, did I get them backwards? I did. Oh, whoops. That's unfortunate. Okay, let's clear that console. We're printing that. We're hitting the key. Default that. The very first item is shipped. The next part is that. So if that's the case, then we cannot do that. We could do that to bring it back to, whoops, this and see that it's a shipped package in the default folder named paste from history. Now there's one thing I want to test here. I'm not sure there's something handy to be able to do it. Let's do this. HTML snippets view. Oh yeah, it's got a problem with that. There's something going on with package resource viewer. Well, you know what? We can just do this, I think. This is the packages folder. There's already an HTML folder. So let's open that. I'll move that over to this other window for just a second. We can view package file, HTML snippets, HTML.sublime snippet. And over here, oh, actually, maybe I could just do this. This might be a little easier. But it needs to be in a folder. Whoa, make a new folder. Call it snippets, because that's what the other one was called. Save it in there. That did not do what I thought it was going to do. I'm going to watch that video back later. But in any case, let's do this. That did not... Okay, that's interesting. Looking over here, if we... I'm gonna close this. This is really getting off into the weeds. Isn't this exciting? This is the file that is the miscellaneous TM preferences, which is what it's supposed to be. And this is a snippet. So I should rename this to html.sublime snippet. Now I could swear I typed that in. We need to close it and reopen it. Now it's a snippet again. So if I was to override report, there it is down there. Actually, I thought I was working in the default package, so that would fiddle some stuff. Here's that, and if we were to diff that, there are no differences found. This is where that whole file name thing and dates come from in the headers, by the way. So if that's the case, and this is just something I wanted to test because I wasn't sure if I fixed this or not. If I pick HTML snippet this, notice that it has a problem with that because there's something wrong with the browser. It doesn't accumulate the path. I thought I had fixed that. It's got a none because it's not. Oh, because the file name that it came up with is html.sublime snippet, which is not found. It should actually be snippet/html.sublime snippet. Okay, so that's neither here nor there. That's something that isn't for this, but I wanted to verify that to make sure that we could trust the results of picking, let's say, this. So there it's saying that this is a shipped package with unpacked. It's named default. That's the override. It's shipped. It's in the package default. The file name is paste from history. Did I not? Maybe the extension is actually important on this as well, now that I think about it. But if I was to remove that, let's say, and, well, actually, if I was to do thus, now when I do it, if I pick that one, shipped defaults, paste from history. Oh, because it's still making the file. There's the extension being added. Okay. Phew. So it's making a file named shipped, named then default, then paste from history, then the appropriate suffix. So that is what we want there, I would think. Let's go ahead and, well, you know what? Let's go ahead and just run the thing. We'll verify it works. Global name packed content is not, oh, I did not, I forgot. I specifically was thinking to myself when I renamed that variable way back when that I was going to have to fix that, and then I forgot. Okay. Default, paste from history. Here's the external diff popped up in, oh, hey, neat. I can actually make Windows the full size of this desktop, which is actually 2560 by 1440. Even that's not, though that's not what this screen is. That's interesting. So here's the extra stuff that I added. And there's my other file. So here's the diff that I made. I added these extra lines here, which I could delete if I wanted to. Now I think this is smart enough to know I can't edit that one, but I can edit this one. Excuse me. And we're using a quick panel instead of the pop-up menu. And I don't think this is new. I think I've showed this before, but this shows it is still actually working. And I'm going to close without saving, and we see diff thread terminating. Now it says external diff finished with return code 0 and then diff thread terminating. The interesting part about that is when we see diff thread terminating, we know this was deleted, so we know the thread went away. And when we see it say executed with return code, we know that if the base file exists, then make it read write and then remove it. And I think that might actually be best served inside of a exception handler. The whole idea of that is to remove that temporary file so we don't clutter things up. So I think that part is actually doing what we want. We can go ahead and this is the by way of example here, because if I did this, now the command is actually getting the stuff that it wants directly. So if I was to run the command, it just immediately opens the external diff. That this is probably the file I showed this off with last time, since that's in the key binding, which allows you to diff specific things in a key binding if you wanted to. I'm going to close this window because I don't think we care. I'm going to leave that because I do need to work on that whole browser thing. As we know, beside it goes into the hierarchy. It's very careful about how it splits the path apart. It just forgets to accumulate. I think I had a fix for it once and I dropped it out because I was thinking of a different way to do it. As it goes up, it needs to keep track of the levels that it was in, or actually, I think it has them in a little stack so that it can go back. So it needs to keep track of where it went so that it can extract, stick it back out. So that's that. So if we do this, we want to create that helper for creating a temporary file. So that's why we wanted to test that. We can get rid of this now, I would imagine. Probably don't care about that part. But all of this is kind of what we want to have as the helper for this so that we can just call a single helper function with a package info and an override name and get back the name of a file. And then this one's also getting a name of a file, and we can see it. This isn't doing what we want it to do. That'll be the next thing once we're done with this one. Which, but that'll make this a lot nicer. Now, I'm imagining I don't have a output view. Here's a utils. What do I have in this thing? Okay, yeah. Settings group. Okay, so then that's not interesting. There's my various. Oops, let's close that and that. We're just gonna view these. The utility. This is for maintaining a group of settings and getting them easily. I have a better way to do that in the latest version of the code. This takes care of all of our threading code in the background because if you have a lot of packages installed, then grinding through the search, because keep in mind when you create a package info, it needs to do 3 file system scans, one to look in the shipped packages folder to see if there's a Sublime package there, one to look in the installed packages, and one to look in the um, unpacked thing. And I believe as a part of that, unpacked files are also scanned and stored right away as part of that scan. Now, if you create a package list, it does that. It does one scan and collects all of the packages throughout the scan. But if you have a lot of packages, that can take a while. So we can't really ever see it because it takes hardly any time. But if I pick this, if you watch the status line, yeah, it's I had to contrive and add delays for my own purposes because I don't install a lot of packages. We have a little spinner that goes in here saying that it's gathering package information, and all of that stuff is located in this file. This is the one we were just working on that has all the information on packages, and this is my simple code for adding stuff to the report views, which probably once I start using override or using hyperhelp as a help system, I could probably abstract that away to use Sublime Lib because it has that sort of functionality already. So I guess I don't actually have in this version per se anything other than this, um, which is might have stuff up at the top here, like this log and syntax setting. List of packages with overrides, decorate package names because multiple reports want to know about that. Open override, delete override, thread freshen override, diff override, find overrides. Oh, there's a thing missing here. Oh, so I guess we might say def extract internal. Extract packed override, we'll call it. And what are the things we need? We need a package info and we need an override, like so, right? And I believe there are various other things that are doing that. And if we came over to here, that's an implementation detail of this part. So really what we want is all of this and then to return override name. Oh, sorry, it's base name. Yeah, I had to look at that for a second because that did not do what I would have thought. Okay, so if I save this, it's going to be broken. Yeah, okay, that's good. We need to fix that. We can Okay, that's too much of that. So, oh, we don't want that one. That one. And that one. Maybe O. Type is actually something that's special, isn't it? Yeah. That's unfortunate. Class is something that is used. What's the okay, let's try this. Oh, we want let's leave it as override type, but we'll change that and that to contents just so that it looks nicer. Now I believe we already discovered that if one was to call this, oh yeah, I got a redundant copy in this pane, so that's well, okay. It would return none and it would return an error. So if this returns none, none, whoops, we're over here. If override type is none, return none. Just because, uh-oh, that is not what we want, my friends. No, it is not. Push escape. If override type is none, return none. So logic here, we're going to call that to get the name of the file and its contents, but if it returns none, then that means that this thing is invalid. An error message will already have been displayed, so we can just go ahead and return none and do nothing here. The name and extension is pulled off of the override so that the name part can become part of the file name. And I'm a little, let's try this, because this is the sort of thing that always screws me up. os.path.splitxt, obviously if it was misc.tm preferences, then we get that and that. But what if this was snippets? That's probably not what we want. Is this a thing? Yeah. I'm imagining we want to do that. So if you actually called it with the snippet like that one down there, then it would take all of the path separators, which we know have to be POSIX because it's an override, and replace them with underscores. So the name would become like shipped underscore HTML underscore snippets underscore HTML dot sublime snippet with that little other prefix on the end there, or the suffix on the end for that being. So that part's good. That part's good. This is creating a temporary file. I guess I might do a try here. And accept that build, right? Okay. The full base name is that. So if it gets all the way down to here, it can return base name. And here it can return none. Just so that we actually catch errors happening here. Now I'm going to go over to my, well, actually I'm going to do this. And it's going to open over here in a window. And temp file, makes temp, create a temporary file in the most secure manner possible, no race conditions, blah, blah, blah. This is responsible for deleting the temporary file when it's done with it. That's good because the other way to do that is to create a file as a handle, and then it's kind of hard to figure out what name it was associated with. Ends with that suffix, begins with that prefix, created in that directory. The default directory is chosen from a platform-dependent list, but the user application can control the location with tempdir. That's why that's not doing it there. We're letting it pick the temporary directory automatically. If text is specified, it indicates whether to open the file in binary mode, the default, or text mode. On some platforms, this makes no difference. Text is defaulting to false. Yeah. We're encoding, so we want it to be binary, so that's okay. Returns a tuple containing the file handle and the absolute path to that file. This does not actually say that it throws an exception, which is, I mean, it's got to, right? I suppose we want something like that. What was I doing over in this packages code? Oh, and again, I don't need to do that because I have a copy of it right here. Well, I guess we probably want to search for try, don't we? Okay, that's nothing that we care about, or that, or that. Why is this printing and not logging? You know, that's just weird. But in any case, I believe we want something like that. Sorta. I mean, not really, but just to look at here. Maybe I don't even care about the, well, I suppose I probably do. Well, this is going to need a little bit of cleaning up anyway. Print error creating temporary file for %s. Oh, well, I guess we'll do that. Yeah. And that is override and, excuse me, stir and then return none. That'll do that. This will all go away. That seems to compile. Raise value error. I am terrible. From override audit dot override audit import extract packed override. And we might say extract packed override and package info for default and preferences.sublime settings. That's probably something that appears in that package, right? Error creating temporary file for preferences.sublime settings. Maybe I want to throw the package name in there too. Yeah. %s/, and then we could have package info. Whoa. Package info name override stir error. Error creating temporary file for default preferences. Default package specifying settings. Global name mixed temp is not defined. Oh, wow, totally didn't even get that far. That's interesting. Oh, haha, I didn't import stuff. Hey, rock on. I assume I said from temp file import. Yeah, that seems like something I probably did. Right here. Global name stat is not defined. Huh. Wow, I have a lot of... Wait, what? Maybe that was actually the thing that I was expecting to go wrong. Oh. Yeah, where does that come from? Oh, I imported stat. Derp. I'm the smart party. Import stat. We are coming close to the end of 2 hours, but I would really like to, if I at least get this part done, then fleshing out that diff process and creating the command, totally something that we can do in next week's stream. Let's see. Error creating temporary file for bloop. I am terrible. So otherwise it would have worked, which is great. Take that part out. If it still works, saved, imported, temp shipped default preferences iscoy.sublime settings. Now I've toyed with this before. You can't put the nice cool, you can give it the prefix. It's got to have that stuff to make it, yeah, the nice one. And again, if I did, we can test this now, HTML and snippets slash HTML.sublime snippet. No such file or directory. Was it lowercase? I've already forgotten. Nothing ever goes your way sometimes, you know? HTML slash snippets slash snippets with an uppercase S slash HTML dot sublime dash snippet. So what the hell am I doing here? That really seems like, it should have worked. No such file or directory. Oh, it still has the slash in the little name there. Did I not? Oh, I should have did it on the name, not on the package name. Oh, I see. That part probably would have been a little smarter. Kudos to you if you have been shouting at the screen since I did that to tell me that I'm a moron. There we go. Now we get temp ship HTML snippets HTML blah, 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 dot sublime snippet. That seems to be what we want. And if we came now, remember I can hit this key and open that immediately. I think that means from override audit, I can also import this. in my external diff, I could say from, I'll move it up here, from override audit dot override audit import that, which I assume is, this thing that I've been typing out, like so. That seems to be okay. Meld still runs, and I called that. Now remember, this takes a package info and an override. So I can say base name is equal to extract packed override from package info and override. All of this part goes away. We can do this. Well, it's safer that way for the time being. Leave if the user didn't interactively pick one. I mean, it won't happen if you do it this way, but it will happen if you do it that way. So if the user didn't pick one, leave. Otherwise, get the base name if base name is none. Return, because that means it had a problem creating that file, so there's no need to diff. We figure out what the full override file name is by taking the unpacked path of the package and adding it to the override, where the regular path separator is valid, and then I would imagine unpacked path should be the local path because it's you only used for file names, it's not used as override stuff, then it runs the command. So in theory, that still works. And if we wanted to be real clever, if we quit Sublime and restarted it, and partial diff is still broken. That's another for being able to diff things like main.sublime menu. It's not so much a diff as it would show you all of them in the order that they're loaded so you can see how they're combining together, sort of. There's the diff still working. So we have, in fact, successfully added a helper for creating a temporary file. Nice test that the code I put in place to persist this thing in the panel here still works. So we would be able to say, flesh out the diff process class. So here, not an untracked file. It's not an unstaged file. Ah, that's weird. I've been tending to use this, so stage that and say include an internal helper for override extraction. This includes a simple helper function whose job it is to take the info on a package and the name of an override and extract the appropriate packed file out into a temporary file so that it can be examined by tools outside of Sublime. The name of the file created is returned and consists of information that tells you if the file is shipped or installed and the full package path and override name plus an unfortunate 6-character uniqueness suffix on the name proper. The file is created as read-only to ensure that the code using the file is made aware that any changes will be lost since the process is going to remove the file anyway. Once the diff is completed. And away we go. Now that is add a helper to create a temporary file. We're really moving along. Let's go down one more, which is flesh out the diff process, which is the code in the current test file. It needs to be integrated with the above code, which we have done thus far, and also basically with this code over here. So here's my thoughts on this. Now that particular class is going to be this external diff thread here. Now right now it's taking a command, a base, an override, a path, and an env. Now command, base, override, path. I don't remember. Oh, I guess because it's a thread. You start it, it needs to have, you create it with the appropriate arguments and then start it. So my plan for this was to say **kw args and then say self.args is equal to kw args, like so. All of that part can go away. This part remains for now. We'll change it to external diff thread terminating so that we know, excuse me, do I have any coffee left? I do. We know that the thread is going away. Now this is something that not really needed, but when I was working on that background threading code that I showed you a little while ago, I had a hell of a problem where I was accidentally in a reference loop where my threads were never going away. I only discovered it because I was paranoid and wanted to know if I was doing it right. And now I tend to do that until I'm sure. Now, launch, I imagine, gets called by this thing, right? So, this is the code that should be doing, whoops, that is, we can close that test browser. We don't care. We don't care about packages.py for right now. We care about this. Well, technically, I suppose. Well, yeah, we do. Okay, we care about all of that. So we're going to copy that over into this OA external diff because we're going to implement this all out here and then sort of move this into override audit once we know that it works. So the first thing we're going to do, I think, is going to be this. Maybe actually, come to think of it, we want to be able to expand this stuff out and have the args dict ready to roll for passing to launch or for launch to just use. So let's say we create a new thing here called def prepare args dict. And we put that into it like so. Now that should still be okay, I would imagine. Oh, is it all unhappy now? Yes, it is. Unexpected end of an indented block. On line 110. Oh, I didn't delete this stuff. Oh, I thought I cut it. My bad. There we go. Now what we would actually do is call self.prepare args dict like so. Now again, what this is doing, it's not kw args. It is self.args, because I believe that's what we stored it as in the init way up there. Do that, I suppose. So here's when you call this, it's going to take the dictionary that you gave it. It's going to pull out the OS X, the Linux, and the Windows things if they exist, returning an empty dictionary if they don't. Then it's going to update the arguments based on the platform by using the appropriate thing. And when that's done, the dictionary, if it has any OS X, Linux, or Windows keys, it will have overwritten things. Then, oh, we need a window. Okay. Well, that's easy enough. Self.window equals window. So we need to be able to grab variables to extract. So we're going to assume those are based on the current window because that's how builds work. So we get the variables. Now I said when I did this, and we can actually go ahead and, whoops, Sublime settings. Way down here at the bottom. In addition to the standard build variables, this also supports the variables override and base. So we're going to say this is the base and this is the override as variables, but those also need to be passed here. So we need to say base override and that. And then we can say self dot base equals base and self dot override equals override. Everything else is arguments to the build. That's that whole future proofy type thing that we're talking about. Come all the way back to here. Now, base isn't that particular HTML type thing that we were using before. It's self.base, and the override is self.override. And then we expand the variables into the args. We don't need to return them. It's printing them so we can see what it's doing. And I save that, and that seems to be okay. So it's going to call prepare args dict. What we're actually going to do is comment out that and that for the time being. So if that works, it'll immediately say it's finished. And that will allow us to run the command. And, ooh, yeah, we're not passing it nearly enough stuff now. Right. So we need the base name and the override name. You know what? Let's do that. Now, what arguments are we supposed to be passing to this thing? I mean, the build is not actually going to work, but we're not actually calling launch, so that's okay. So we're supposed to pass thus. So let's bring that down here. We need to pass it a window, which is our self.window, the base name, the override name, and the args. So what we also need to do here is say args is equal to underscore OA setting external diff. Now, of course, this command should really only work when external diff isn't false, but that's neither here nor there for the time being. That's not going to work when we run it because the global name OA setting is not known. We'll go ahead and do this. And 4 parameters, but 5 were given. What am I doing wrong here? Window, base, override, and everything else is arguments. Oh, I guess I'm passing a dictionary when it should be a keyword. Right, I had a different thought in my head. Let's do it that way. There we go. That should probably be okay. Local variable result referenced before assignment. All right, so good. That is sort of doing what we want. There's a problem with that. Say result equals 0 just to shut it up. And there we have it. So that whole gist was I was originally thinking just pass it the whole dictionary, and then after the fact I thought, you know what, let's make this take just the 2 file names and that args dictionary. We'll be able to expand what's included in that dictionary later. We can also make it valid that if we want. So now we're seeing this sort of thing when we run it. The shell command is home tmartin meld with 2 empty things, and the working directory is the packages user folder. So the only issue there is base and override is probably not what I used in my settings for this thing when I set it up. This mouse is really touchy. I used left and right. So those should all be base, and those should all be override. And I think that should, oh. Now the shell command is meld of the temporary file and, did I not just tweak that? Should I not have closed the file? Or is it just that I did it wrong? I put too many R's. I was totally watching that too. Okay, let's do it in this window. The shell command is home tmartin meld of the TM preferences file and the miscellaneous preferences in the working directory of that. Okay, that's nice. So we can go ahead and close that. That part seems to be kind of doing something. Now, if we went up here, this would not be that. It would actually just be args.shell command. We've already expanded it, right? So I'm going to do that, and skip that one, pick that one, pick that one, pick that one, and say self.args. No. Yeah, we'll save that. We'll split it out this way. Self.args shell command. So it'll say what it's running, which is something that the exec command does. We need the working dir in here, but we'll worry about that in just a moment. And because I don't think that necessarily matters for here, but if I did this, I think that means that error during execution external diff thread object has no attribute path. Oh, it doesn't. Oh, right. Okay. If self.path. That's something that used to be there. So let's go ahead and just verify that stuff. That's what it needed. If a path was provided, then it's in self.path. How many of those are there? We have to put it back. self.args. Oh, yeah, you know what? I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it the other way. Just cause. So let's see. Path is equal to self.args.get path. Get args, get shell command. And then instead of self.path, it's just path. And similarly, env is equal to self.args.get env. And then this becomes env, like so. Self.proc. Well, I guess, yeah, it needs to do that so that the other thing can wait on it, right? So that that one can prepare the args dig. So it can call self.proc wait. Yeah, so that part is needed. Now, if I did that again, none error during execution, none type object is not iterable. Oh, right. We want to do this. Yeah. So if no environment is provided, can use the squiggle brace type functionality of that operation. How about now? Now, diff finished with exit. Oh, well, I might not have. Which meld? User local bin meld. Okay. We can see that it's running home team Martin meld. So something has gone wrong in that regard. Pref override audit. Did I not? Whoa. My scroll went wild. Home team Martin meld. Oh, there you go. What did I just say that was? User local bin meld. Yeah. There we go. Configure it properly, and life will be your oyster. And there we have that business. So I'm just going to close that. I'm going to have to test this. I don't have Meld installed on that laptop anymore. That will require a little bit more testing. Oh, let's do that working dir thing too. To do that, VPF exec.py and look for working dir, which is an empty string. And it can do this because I want it to work the same as builds do. Excuse me. This one can now be deleted because I'm done with it. We would do this. Whoa. Working dir is equal to self.args.get working dir, and here we want it to be the empty string. And then if the working dir is the empty string and the window, was that already self.window? It was, doesn't it? If window has an active view and the active view has a file name, then the working dir is the file name directory of the file name of the active view. So that we can actually have a working dir is different from, I don't know that that necessarily is something that's useful here, but here's something to try, I suppose. What if we went back to package settings for override audits and settings, and for this, what if we said the shell command is to say, oh, we're not going to be able to see it do anything. I was going to echo the current working directory. Well, it requires more testing, so we'll assume that that's going to happen at that point. So I think if we look at this, the code in the current test file needs to integrate with the above code, take a dictionary, which it will expand itself and the names of the two files. Now I forgot it also needs to take a window so that it can extract variables, which it didn't need to do before because it was taking it from the window command directly. So let's just verify what we have here and call this a stream because we have gone for 2 hours and 16 minutes here. So when we create the external diff thread, we capture the window, the name of the two files, and any arguments that might have been provided. When we actually launch the thing, we get the appropriate arguments out of the dictionaries and set them up. Now, we could actually make this be part of the code down here and prepare args dict so that it did this stuff and then set all of these args up so that these were just here. Gets a shell command. Oh, that's something I wanted to check here. Does this verify that it has something to execute? I don't remember. Oh, got to do this part. Change to the working dir rather than spawning the process with it. So that emitted working dir. Okay, so we need to do that. That's good. I'm glad I went through that because it doesn't help to set the working dir if you're not going to do anything with it. So if the working dir is empty, then it sets one. Then we do all of the settings we don't care about. Create the panel we don't care about because we're not going to view the thing here. Say that it's running unless it's quiet, but we're happy to just always do it. We don't need to. We could do a status for executing. That might be something to do. If it should show the panel, do it, hide that. Get the environment ready. This is stuff I already pulled out. Right after it sets up the environment, it should do this. So, okay. There it is, setting up the environment. I'm sure that's the exact same code. User env, merged env, update user env. Oh, it's right. I was based on a different version of the code. Nevertheless, let's just double check that. The environment, if there's an active view, then, if user env and self window active view settings build env. Hey, interesting. I think that's kind of newish. I don't remember that being there before. Could be wrong though. It would not be the first time. Process env update. Or does that actually happen in a different part here now? In the actual part where it's executing the thing. Or up in oh, right. I see. Yeah. This bit here is the part that part is. My bad. Because we don't really care about that other part. So this is the part, this async process is actually the magic of this whole operation. So after that, we could say, because we are in the thread, we don't need that. If the working directory is not empty, change to it. Okay, so maybe this is the code where we want some of this. Now these are going to be raised as errors, so I think we'll do this. Oh, we'll do this part here. If not, shell command is required, and if shell command, and oh, we don't have to say that. If we already know shell command, so if it's not that, shell command must be a string. Then say it's running and sublime dot, what did this do? Status message. Yeah, okay. We'll change it to diffing externally. Okay, now if I run it, check the command, the status line, diffing externally, there's the tool popping up the way we want. Now, just to verify that we have bulletproofed that just a little bit, if I was to comment that line out, then when I build, the console says error during execution, shell command is required. It doesn't say what it's trying to execute, but that's something that is supposed to be cleaned up later. Then it finished with return code none. And the external thread went, okay, so now if I did this and changed it to a list, which is still technically valid, it does the thing and says shell command must be a string. So that should bring it back to working state, which it does. We close that. That part's doing what we want. Now this is again all stuff that was cribbed directly from exec's thing there, maybe with a little bug fix. Taking a copy of the environment, update it with the environment that was provided, and expand variables in each one. Run that, and as soon as it's done the p open, if there was a path, put it back. Now up here, if we look in this code, what do we got? Copy the environment, update it, expand variables. This we don't need because we're not trying to be able to cancel this build. Build, environment path equals old path. I think there's actually a bug in this because if subprocess p open throws an exception, then this never happens. But because this code totally jiggers your path, if you fiddle the path and make a broken build, your path ends up permanently broken for this instance of Sublime until you restart it again. That's neither here nor there. Let's go ahead and do that because we don't care. Now, all that part is actually just executing the thing. Once it's done executing, we don't care. Prepare the arguments dictionary is the code we already tested, and expand those arguments out. And when we run, we prepare the arguments dict, launch it, and wait for the result. And if there's an error, the result is none, just to make sure that it has a value. We can change this to error while diffing and do that, and the external diff finished with return code bloop. That file is there. Try to remove it. Now again, this part really seems like it should be in a try. Yeah, so I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do a try. Just try to do that, and if it doesn't work, don't sweat it. If something happened that we can't erase the file, it is in the temporary directory. We're doing our best. We don't want to harass people to say, hey, we created an empty file and it didn't work. So that is more or less our diff functionality for external diffing, discounting that whole cleaning things up a little bit. And if I went into my key bindings and commented that out just for the remainder of this. When I run the command, I could say, what did I do with my single file build? Well, I changed some leading white space. This is why you want to be able to do something like this, because if I can remember the magic of the diff options on this thing. There we go. File filters, text filters. Leading white space and trailing white space in this kind of file is not interesting. So we can see that I swapped it from being source.c to being source.c and source.c++ so that I could use this to build C files too. And I, for a little while, had word wrap turned off and quiet turned off. So you know what we could actually do here as a result of this whole operation is do this. And now that diff is a lot nicer. And I quit. And if I did it again and pick that, we got the nice diff here. And just to see how nicely this integrates with override audit itself, if we were to diff this override, well, this is the one where we're not getting to see that whole leading trailing white space thing, which really comes down to the way tabs are expanded. That might be something I can fix here. I don't know what the good thing to do there is, because if the source file had tabs and you expanded them, should it try to expand tabs to the same size as your tab size? And wouldn't it have to figure out what the tab size is based on the type of the file, which is more complicated? It's something that could be done. Not something that we're going to work on today. And tonight's stream is over, so thank you so much for watching. We have made some real progress on this. We have also fleshed out the diff process class. Now that's in my user folder, so I'm not going to check that into the repository just yet, because then it'll break on my other computers, which are using the version 2 of this code. But one last thing to do is create a command using the above. And realistically, that is more or less this command here that we have been working with, made smarter. And I've decided that, at least for the time being, how this is going to tie into things is while you're in a diff, the menu here, along with saying edit override and delete override, will also say open diff externally, and it will appear in the command palette as well. As we can see here, there's the swap diff, edit view, and delete override, which were already available here. That does mean that, at least initially, you won't be able to right-click on this and pick diff externally, because there'll be an extra option there. But one of the things I do want to work on is changing that whole context menu thing. But that's all we have tonight. Thank you for watching and following along. We have made some great strides in the next feature in Override Audit, and we're going to continue this next week. Until then, remember to subscribe if you like the videos. Hit the thumbs up if you want to know when there's more videos. Use the bell notification icon. If you have any questions about anything Sublime Text package related, do drop a comment in the question section below, or ping me on Twitter at OdatNurd, and I can create a video for that sort of thing. And those are the sorts of videos that I don't have to write a plan out for. I would just record it just like this. But until someone does that, or until next Sunday, please, everybody, this is OdatNurd saying have a sublime day.